from the people who brought you the evils of the left's cancel culture is, hey, isn't cancel culture great? But only if we do it. And besides, it's to protect the children. Now, according to the Daily Beast, a conservative group in Texas is in the middle of a battle to ban certain school books. So now, in Tennessee's Williamson County School District, which has, by the way, passed a new state law banning the teaching of certain race-related topics, probably, of course, a response to critical race theory, which is not even taught in the classroom. So understand that they have freaked out about critical race theory, which is a college-level course, and say, oh, we got to get CRT out of the classroom. I know, let's ban it. Ban it. And of course, they end up banning or being able to ban race-related subjects, like the civil rights era. So now, that new state law, of course, has allowed them to sue to eliminate these materials, but they're going a little bit further. Apparently, a private school parent has a brand new group that is going to war on books involving race, dragons, sad owls, hurricanes, and sexy seahorses. The group is, and I just want to give you the irony about this. They are called Moms for Liberty. We believe in liberty, except, for reading. Like books that you want to read. We don't believe in that kind of liberty. Right? Now, registering its website in late 2020, the group Moms for Liberty is one of a series of conservative education groups spring up in the wake of 2020's racial justice protests. The group is currently involved in battles against in-school mask mandates, because of course, as well as a particularly heated fight over school books in Tennessee's Williamson County. Now, the best part about this group is that the leader doesn't even have any kids in the school district. So she's not even involved. There's not even a parental aspect to this. This is, I don't want your kids to learn about these things. I don't have kids there. I don't want your children to learn about this because it offends me. Why would you care at all what they're reading? It doesn't involve you or your children. Again, if you don't even like the curriculum, you have the right to go and homeschool your kids. No, it's not. That's not enough. We have to control your life too. We have to censor things that your children might be reading. So now, they sent a letter in June complaining that the district's curriculum had violated state law against the teaching of some race-related subjects in public schools. They specifically took issue with items about Martin Luther King Jr., Ruby Bridges, protests during the civil rights movement, and school segregation. So these are historical figures. There's historical context. These are things that happened in history. And she says, well, no, I don't want you learning about that. I don't want you learning about that because I think the framing is bad. You cannot read or learn something about this. How dare you? Because you might actually learn something. All right, accompanying the letter is an 11-page spreadsheet with complaints about other books on the district's curriculum, ranging from popular books on civil rights heroes to books about poisonous animals. The text speaks of horned lizards squirting blood out of their eyes, which they actually do. Johnny Appleseed, they said, because the story is sad and dark. Greek and Roman mythology, because look, now let's be honest. In Greek and Roman mythology, they fuck. A lot of fucking going on. The illustration of the goddess Venus naked coming out of the ocean. Normally, of course, she covers herself up in those drawings. Story of Tantalus and how he cooks, serves, and eats his son. A book about hurricanes, they say is no good. They say, well, at hurricanes, first graders are too young to learn about hurricanes. Okay, but first graders go through hurricanes. They also say that a book about owls is too sad. Quote, it's a sad book, but turns out okay. Not a book I would want to read for fun, an adult wrote in the owl book in the spreadsheet. But nobody cares. You're not the class. You're not the student. Maybe they do want to read about the owl. Maybe they get something from it that you don't. You're an adult. They're a child. I mean, baby brain. Brainworms. All right, there's more. Reached for comment, the Williamson County MFL chapter told the Daily Beast that the list represented a collection of complaints about books in the district. There are 31 books that our parents have expressed concern about. The group's leader wrote in an email, some books should be removed entirely. Some books are objectionable only because of how they are presented via the accompanying teacher's manual. And yes, some books would better be suited to a higher grade level due to age-inappropriate content. In addition to the broadsides against books about kings and bridges, the list takes a dim view of multiple books about Native Americans or indigenous people. One of them, they say The Rough-Faced Girl, is deemed inappropriate because it includes an illustration of the protagonist bathing with her hair covering her chest. Oh no! Their hair covering her chest! No!
Oh no!
Perversion! Absolute perversion! How dare they?
I like my meat tight.
No, you don't! Because that's what's going to happen. No, come on. You're kidding. You're kidding. Now, the book First Nations in North America, Plains Indians, also is apparently a no-no because, get this, it, quote, paints white people in a negative light. You realize the history of this. White people came over to North America. They spread disease, murdered countless indigenous people, and not just North America, South America as well. In fact, you had Christopher Columbus's men literally ripping children from mothers' wombs and dashing them on rocks. That is according to accounts from one of Christopher Columbus's men, who had then experienced so much horrifying imagery when he was there. He saw some shit, and later on went on to completely repent on all of that and say, oh my God, the things that I dealt with, I'm going to be scarred for the rest of my life seeing this stuff. Now just imagine how they felt. But let's worry about the image of white people. And by the way, I'm not saying, and let me be clear, I'm not saying that you as a white person should feel personally responsible and ashamed of what had happened. You did not take part of that. You didn't do it. But it is part of our history, as bad as it is. And so understand that you have to learn about this history so that those same mistakes in the past are not repeated. Also, it matters because history shapes today. Okay? So now there's more. They also complain that multiple books contain Spanish or French Creole words, and they receive warnings for potentially confusing the children. They're confused at these foreign words. In America, we speak American. An article about crackdowns on civil rights demonstrators, meanwhile, is also deemed inappropriate for the negative view of firemen and police. Well, you know, during the civil rights era, it was firemen and police that constantly would crack down and literally crack skulls. They would shoot fire hoses at people, release dogs on civil rights protesters. That's literally our history, what happened. And so, yes, it is important to teach that. And sure, you can do it, of course, when it's age appropriate. You know, I wouldn't teach a kindergartner about that. But I also wouldn't teach them Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered America, and he was great. No, to say, well, you know, Columbus, very controversial figure. You'll learn the details later. Trust me, not good. Now, a fictional book about the Civil War, also given to fifth graders, is deemed inappropriate in part due to predictions of, get this, out-of-marriage families between white men and black women. You mean slaves, right? That's what happened. That's slaves. Slavery. You can't even say it, apparently. And now, these same people want to ban the book. Just erasing history. What happened to erasing history? The conservatives didn't want to erase the history. What are you talking about? Now, they also say that it's bad because it has descriptions of white people as bad or evil. So now, let me just get one thing straight, okay? People are people. White people aren't a certain way, just like black people or brown people aren't a certain way. I mean, you can't just stereotype somebody based on the color of their skin. Ridiculous. Nobody agrees with that. No, people are people. Individuals matter. They make their choices. Not any one group is bad or evil. It always comes down to the choices of people in that group and what they do. So once, I mean, and it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. That people are people and will make their own decisions. And some people will do bad things. Some people will do good things. And it's not representative of your race. Now, there's more. And also, at one juncture, the group implores the school district to include more charitable descriptions of the Catholic Church when teaching a book about Galileo Galilei. Remember, Galileo was persecuted by the church by saying that the earth revolves around the sun instead of what they believed at the time, that, you know, everything revolves around the earth, which was factually incorrect. But here's what they said about this. Bro, where's the hero of the church? Contrast with their mistakes. There are so many opportunities to teach children the truth of our history as a nation. First of all, that didn't even happen in America. That happened over in Europe. The church has a huge and lasting influence on American culture. Both good and bad should be represented. The Christian church was responsible for the genesis of hospitals, orphanages, social work, charity, to name a few. Yeah, okay, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the oppression of the repression and persecution of scientists and science and knowledge. I mean, they did oppress people. The whole reason there was the Dark Ages, literally the result of the domination of the Catholic Church. There was the Inquisition, literal Inquisition. Okay, so yeah, it took brave individuals to challenge that orthodoxy, and many lost their lives as a result of that. Burned at the stake for heresy. Now, I'll admit that the church is better than it used to be. Yeah, they're not burning people alive, at least. Hey, that's good. But that said, they have their problems. Like, you know, Catholic child sex scandals, that whole thing. I'm not going to get into that, though. I'm just saying that it's there. So now, finally, they decided to take issue with a picture book about seahorses. In part, that it depicted mating seahorses with positions, pictures of positions, and discussion of the male carrying eggs. In fact, I'm going to show you a video here. This is somebody who is reading that book for the internet. And I want you to take a look at this and see what kind of smut they're teaching our children.
Every day at sunrise, Seahorse swims slowly off to meet his mate. They twist their tails together and twirl gently around, changing color until they match. Seahorses are faithful to one mate and often pair up for life. Today, Seahorse's mate is full of ripe eggs. The two of them dance until sunset, and then she puts her eggs into his pouch. Barber seahorses mate every few weeks during the breeding season. Only the male seahorse has a pouch. Only the female seahorse can grow eggs.
Oh my God. I hope you were able to avert your eyes to this horrible pornographic material about seahorses. Seahorses? More like sea sluts, let me tell you. Gross. Oh my God. No, okay. Now, the MFL, to be fair, and I am making fun of them, but to be fair, they do recommend that the book be reserved for older children. How old? 8th graders. So, wait, 8th graders? For that? That seems like more like a 3rd grade book. I mean, so, okay, these people are super ridiculous, and they need to remove the stick from their ass. Now, I get the idea of protecting children from certain ideas or concepts until they're mature enough to handle them mentally. Okay? And I get that. But we also have to remember that kids are smarter than we give them credit for. No, really, they are. 8th graders, for example, look, they've probably been on the internet. They're around 13 to 14 years old. Chances are they have likely seen worse than the Seahorse book. Which, again, if you look at the Seahorse book, that's not objectionable at all. I mean, look, just judging from my own personal experience, I knew things at 13 that would blow this group's mind. And I would like to think that I actually turned out pretty okay. Now, again, the issue here is kids aren't stupid. You can't just sit there and bubble wrap and baby them all the way into their teens and into adulthood. That's going to cause a lot of problems for them personally and socially and in their development. I'm sorry, but you can't always protect them from objectionable material. I'm not saying you expose them intentionally, by the way. No, you don't do anything like that. Of course not. But here's the thing. You have to allow them to grow. And you also have to not underestimate them. Be open and honest. If they have questions, you should answer them as a parent. And I realize that, understand that might not be easy to do, and I get it, but you try to do the best to explain the truth of how things work, and you do so in a way, of course, that is age appropriate. And the reason you do that is so that you don't shock them later in life. Because, of course, that lack of knowledge could also harm them. One more thing to note, by the way, is that the students themselves. So now, as these book bans have been going on, and they've been going on for a long time, there's always been conservative groups that have been pushing back, trying to ban books they find are objectionable. For example, there was Anal Sex Lady, the Anal Sex Karen, that was like, I've never had it before. This book is terrible. Well, you should get it removed. Okay, all right, calm down. I get it. I understand. But you have to make sure that, kids have some knowledge of how things work. Maybe not necessarily that we're just talking about, okay? But like, to make sure that, again, they're exposed to things that are age appropriate, and to make sure you don't get them into a situation where their lack of knowledge could end up harming them in the long run. So again, this is a very difficult subject to talk about, and there is, of course, a lot of nuance involved. And I'm not, of course, trying to tell people how to parent, just trying to show how ridiculous some of this stuff actually is, and how overboard these people are taking it. Okay, but as I mentioned before, there's a lot of students themselves that have been fighting back against these book bans, and they're, in fact, frequently complaining that they are not allowed to read certain things that they think that they'd be able to handle, that they should be allowed to read. And in fact, as a result, in New York, they stood up for themselves and saying, no, we can handle this. I think we're old enough to understand these concepts and to absorb them and to treat them responsibly. And I think that's good. And, again, ultimately what we want is for kids to grow up and to have critical thinking and knowledge about the world. We want them to learn. We want them to think for themselves and to become their own people. And you can't really do that when you try to overparent and block them from learning things, even, especially if those things are innocuous or presented in a way you might disagree with the framing, but it is important that they get all different perspectives. And this group is apparently absolutely against allowing children to have different perspectives. And I think the reason is because, well, They want to have control and to make sure that their kids have only one perspective, and that's theirs. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.